Hello, welcome to Be More LLC's first webinar on Blab. Pretty excited about it. I'm just going to go ahead and just jump right in. This particular training is called Purpose, Passion, and Profit. A little bit about me. My name is Rashim. I am the president and CEO of Be More LLC, a nonprofit coaching and development agency. And I am based in Baltimore, in the DMV area. And our online services that we have provide coaching for people really all over the world. Today, we're just going to go ahead and do this webinar here for you. And it is called Purpose, Passion, and Profit. So for people who are on now or people who are planning on listening to the replay, one of the first things I want to say outside of, letting you know about who I am is just to kind of thank you for your time today. I'm really grateful to be able to serve in this way, to be able to take a gift or something that I'm very passionate about and kind of share it with the world. In addition to being the CEO of Be More LLC, just to give you a little bit more about me, my background is I have a bachelor's in social science. I have a master's in nonprofit management, certification in nonprofit management, as well as organizational leadership and development, and currently finish up a doctoral degree in social work. Right. But I wasn't always that person. I didn't always have those degrees, and I was not always the CEO of Be More LLC. It actually, Be More LLC, the origins of it started a little bit less bright and shiny than what you see before you today. The Oedipus, or the push, I should say, or the catalyst for Be More LLC came about during a time where I didn't have a place to live. I was kind of couch surfing. I was living on a friend's futon from here and there. And I also didn't have a degree, not a single degree. I didn't have a job or even a car. And one of the ways that it came about was I had two things. I had these two notebooks, and one of the notebooks I had was a gratitude notebook, and I would just keep writing all the things that I was grateful for in this notebook. The other book, I just decided that I was going to write my dreams and aspirations and the things that I wanted to accomplish and what I wanted to do and all those sort of things. And I didn't really have a name for that notebook for a long time. But I just walked around with this spiral notebook, and I'm a person who really likes to name things. So I ended up later, I was at a bus stop. And when I was at a bus stop, there was a young man, and he was on the phone. And I had just moved to Baltimore at the time, and he was talking to someone, and he said, yeah, you come pick me up. I'm in Be More. And when he said the words Be More, I knew what he meant by them, but there was something, there was a calling or a pulling in that sense of more, in the sense of being more. So I decided to name that little notebook Be More. And as I went about and got degrees and accomplished different things, one of the reasons that I was able to do what I was able to do was because of the nonprofits that were in the area, the nonprofits that provided travel vouchers, nonprofits that provided childcare, nonprofits that provided workforce development, career training, all of those things. And so it really became, it just kind of deepened the passion that I had already had for service. And I often tell people that one of my first examples of nonprofit service came from my grandmother, who had no more than a third grade education. But I learned more from her about what it was to care for people compassionately, what it was to help, and what it meant to lead and serve in the process of serving. So my grandmother put the candle there, and my experiences with nonprofits coming in my own coming of age story kind of helped that to further along. And that's how we have Be More LLC today, the nonprofit development agency. And again, I just want to thank you for the privilege of serving you today. I'm grateful to be an instrument in this process for you in terms of passion, your purpose, and of course, profit. So you're probably wondering, who is this for? So here's a few things to identify if you're in the right place. If you may need to jump off, I may not be the right fit. This may not be the right fit. So no point in you waiting all the way to the end or getting somewhere halfway in the middle and taking up your time and realizing this isn't for you. So I'm going to tell you who exactly this is made for, because I was very intentional in the creation of this, very intentional in my the words that I use, what I thought about, picturing the person and what their needs might be. So this is for the person that it's for you if you have ever fulfilled a goal that is outside of your purpose, only to realize that that goal actually did not fulfill you, then this is absolutely for you. If you have a desire to honor the highest calling in your life, then this is absolutely for you. And if you are driven by the desire to make measurable change in the lives of people, then this is definitely for you. What I plan on teaching and what you'll learn in this process today is, one, how to combine your purpose, your passion, and your profit in a way that makes you an unstoppable force for good. Another thing that you'll learn, I hope I'm able to get all of this in, so I'm going to get as much of this in as I possibly can. Another thing that you'll learn is the 7-step formula to monetizing your message. You'll also learn the 3 questions that you need to answer when you're serving anybody. If you want people if you're creating educational content or marketing content, there's 3 questions that come to people's minds. And if you don't answer those questions initially, then you tend to have a little bit more of a challenge just being able to communicate to them later. And I'm going to share with you what those 3 questions that your content, that your information needs to answer. And I also will share with you the KLT. What's the big deal with the KLT? What that means and why T is such a big deal. Okay. So if you have not already, go ahead and get your sheet of paper. I always like sheets of paper and pencils whenever I'm listening to a training and engaging. So I have mine because sometimes ideas come to my head and I need to be able to write that down, or if someone has a question and I want to look into it a little bit more, I need to be able to do that. So the first thing we're going to go into, like I said, we're going to look at your purpose, passion, and profit. So let's talk about purpose first. A lot of times people ask me the question, Rashim, I don't know like what my purpose is. And how do you even uncover something like that? How do you even find and decide exactly what your purpose is? And there's 2 bits of information that I typically give them. One, you typically can find your purpose somewhere between your greatest pain and your greatest joy. And what I mean by that is, what is the thing that moves you, either compels you in some sort of way, whether it just downright makes you mad, whether it upsets you, or if it is something that, for lack of a better word, cooks your noodle, as my aunt would say. Whether it's something that cooks your noodle, something that when you see this, whether you feel like it's an injustice or you feel like it's wrong, or however, it's usually somewhere in there. I've said once or twice before that emotions, they're a fantastic indicator, but a terrible dictator. So listen to your emotions in terms of what are they telling you about how do you feel, whether it's an issue in your community. Do they not have enough fresh produce? Or is there something that particularly upsets you? And what is the why that makes you cry? What is your why? That's what the purpose is. Your why is the thing that's going to influence and push and help and support your purpose as it moves forward. So you usually can find that between your greatest pain and your greatest joy. And So in the end of the joy, some of the things I will use myself as an example. Some of the things that give me joy is seeing people get their needs met, being able to help people who help other people, being able to have a bigger impact. One of my greatest pains is seeing people who have the passion, the drive, the willingness to serve people, but they just don't have the organizational tools to be able to do so. They don't have the reach or the marketing or what have you. They just don't have these other pieces that can be easier put in place than, let's say, something like passion, desire, compassion, willingness to serve. So those are some of the things, and that's how I find my way. Another thing, and this one I actually learned from coming out of the Steve Harvey Institute. And one of the things that he mentioned was he talks about gifts and the difference between your gifts and your passion, even though we're not at passion yet. But one of the things he said about your gifts is he said your gift is that thing that you do seamlessly better than anybody else. That kind of reminds me a little bit along the lines of skills. What are your skills? So again, this is quite different from what your purpose is. Okay. Another thing that helps to bring about an understanding of what your purpose would be is what are the struggles that you've had in your own personal life that has strengthened your convictions about something. Right. So if you have a sheet of paper, I would encourage you to write down a few things. One of the things I would tell you to write down first is that your passion is somewhere between your pleasure and your pain. And write down what you believe what is the why that makes you cry. That's something to definitely write down. What is the why that makes you cry? And also, if you think about some of the struggles, some of the struggles that you've had in life, and how have they strengthened your conviction in one direction or another? With me earlier, I shared about always having a desire to serve and wanting to help. But one of the things that was strengthening that is when I came upon hard times myself, and nonprofits were there to help me, were there to support me, were there to get me on my feet. And those struggles helped to strengthen my conviction. Another thing around your purpose to help identify your purpose is just getting connected with your core values. What are the things that matter to me most? And you could usually find out what are those things that matter to you most by where you spend your energy and where you spend your money. Sometimes there are some things that we say are our core values, but we demonstrate it quite differently, right? So if we say family is a core value, but we only see our family, we only come home for like 30 minutes to eat food and we go to sleep and we don't spend time with our family, then that's just something that we might want to rethink, and we might just want to look over and kind of re-examine and maybe redistribute our time. So we're still on purpose. And know that your purpose is not just a matter of what you can do. When I say purpose, I mean what it is that you're put here to do. What is it that you're supposed to do? What is the pulling? Because there's some things, and this is how I've gotten caught up a few times. There are some things for which that I am capable of doing and that I can do effectively, but they're not my purpose. There's some things that I can kick butt at, but they're not really my purpose. And I'll give you an even more simplified, concrete example. I can brush my hair with a toothbrush. It will get the job done. It has the bristles to do it. It has the handle. You know, I could probably even get some other areas that would be a little bit more that might be missed if I used a brush. But that is not the purpose of the toothbrush. Just because it can do it doesn't mean that is its purpose. So think about that when you're thinking about what your purpose is, because you may write a list of things, and this may be along the lines of the gift category. What are your skills? And it doesn't. Now, one of the things is you can use those skills to the service of what your purpose is. you can absolutely and should use those things that you are capable of doing, that you shine at, that you're good at, in the service of what your purpose is. Just want to make that distinction and clarification, because there are some things that you may not have the skills for. And this is a tricky one. You may not have the skills for it, but it still may be your purpose, right? One of the things I think that one of the first people I heard say it was Mary, I think it was Mary Morrissey. And she said that God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So if it's something that you were pulled or compelled to do, that you feel like is your calling, and you're saying to yourself, you know what, I don't have XYZ, I don't have this skill set, and or I don't have that, or, one of the things that I've come across with a lot of new and emerging nonprofits and social entrepreneurs is they have the passion, and they have the drive, and they have the desire, but they don't have the skill set quite yet. They don't have the organizational leadership skills exactly, and a lot of times that's how that's where they come up. That's where they come up short. But the thing about it is that's not where you should be stopped, because all of those other things, skills can be developed, responsibilities and aspects of your business that could be delegated. But what is passionate, what you're compelled to do, what your purpose is, that's not something that anyone. You can't really train that into a person. Compassion, not really. You can't really train the desire to serve and to help people. That takes a whole lot more effort than to get a person who is an accountant or a person who's has a background in organizational leadership if they don't have those two. So this is still around what your purpose is. So again, if you're trying to identify your purpose, just to recap the purpose section, is somewhere between your greatest joy and greatest pain. Also look to your struggles. What struggles have you had that have strengthened your core values? And what are your core values? And remember that your purpose is not just the function of what you are good at, but what you are meant to do. So the next one is passion. Now, passion I appreciate because it is the difference between casual and committed, right? It is the difference between whether or not you're going to not do something because it's inconvenient or because you don't like it. It is what you do no matter what. It is the things that you're most passionate about. There's not a lot of things that are that will block you or stop you from doing those things. So there's some things, and I would encourage you to take out a sheet of paper and write down the list. There's some things, make a casual column and a committed column. There's some things that I'm committed to that no matter what, there's nothing going to stop me from doing it. I have a daughter. Feeding my daughter, making sure she get fed, I'm committed to that. I am 100% totally committed to that. My husband, I am 100% totally committed to that. Helping and serving people who want to help other people grow and prosper and develop, I am committed to that. Those are some of my no matter whats. Now, there are some things that I'm enthusiastically casual about. Like, oh man, this would be really, really great. But when it comes down to it, like, am I really willing to put in the work that it would take, or do I want to quick fix? And a really good example for that for me is I would love to have a washboard flat stomach. I would absolutely love it, but it is not something that I'm committed to, right? I will buy Spanx. I will do everything except for what it takes to get a flat washboard ab stomach because my why isn't big enough. And that goes back to the purpose of it. I want to do it so I can look nice in an outfit. I want to do it so that I can look cute. I'm not doing it because I'm worried about health or disease or anything. It's all about me, vanity, like looking a particular way. So that why just isn't strong enough for me to actually take a real committed action. I have friends who have made their desire to have a washboard stomach, they're committed to it. They're going to the gym. They are getting on a treadmill. They are going on walks. They are drinking water. They got their Fitbit. They're cutting out carbs. Those sisters are committed. And I'm just not committed, and I'm pretty casual about that. So think about that. Think about that also in terms of as you develop this, this organization or this business or this social entrepreneurship. Are you casual about it or are you committed? Because this is a very expensive, taking on a nonprofit or any type of really organizational new endeavor. It's a really expensive hobby. So it's not really something that you want to be casual about. Write down what it is that you want. If you got a sheet of paper, give you some time to do that. Write down what it is you want. And then right after you write down what it is you want, write down what it is you're willing to do to get it. And then write down what it is you're not willing to do. There are some situations where people say, I want a nonprofit organization, and they're willing to do the paperwork, right? But they're not willing to do board recruitment. They're not willing to put up some of their own money toward the development. They're not willing to get training. So then you have to ask the question, if these are some of the things that it takes to be effective, to be sustainable, am I casual about this or am I committed? And so those are just some things to think about and draw that connection from your why, right? The why that makes you cry, to your what is the thing that you want? Because the more you have, the stronger why that you have connected to the what it is that you want, the less the how will stop you. If my why, so I'm gonna give it, put it in context of myself. If my why is to feed, if my why is that my daughter, I do this so that my daughter will never be hungry, right? That's my why. And what I want out of that is a way of supporting and feeding her. Then my how I'm going to do it matters less. The goal is that she never goes hungry. The what is that I get some resources and tools or whatever it is that I need to get to make sure that she's fed. And the how is, it just matters less. Because there's all sorts of avenues of how. Your why is the thing that's unchangeable. Now, the what and the how, those things could change all the time. You can stick with the goal, but change the strategy. That is something that we are allowed to do. We can change the strategy. One way of feeding my daughter would be to grow a garden. Another way of feeding my daughter may be to get a job at a grocery store and get a discount on something. Another way may be to get a job here, do this, or strategy. Strategies can change, but the why is the constant variable. It is the independent variable. It stands alone, separate from everything else. All right, so we talked about the purpose. We talked about the passion. Now let's talk about the profit. Money, 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 money. Don't quit my day job, right? So professionalizing your passion is a 3-step process. How do you professionalize it? So you say, okay, Rasheen, I know what my why is. I want to be a youth development organization. No, I want to be a youth development organization. Yeah, let's just go with that. I want to have a youth development organization. The why that makes me cry is there's so many young men. There's a high recidivism rate, a larger number of young men who are in the juvenile justice system, and they are repeat offenders. And this is a why that makes me cry. And I want to know, how do I professionalize that, right? So the first step is part of that purpose and passion step is just discovering it, what it is that you want to do. So that's step 1 in professionalizing your passion. You got to discover, you got to know what it is. Next thing you have to do is design it, right? I want to, the why that makes me cry is youth incarcerated. And now how am I going to design it? How am I going to take my gifts and my skills and those other things that I'm good at and design it in such a way that I can effectively do this? What is going to be my strategy for getting that done, right? So there's 3 aspects of designing. So write this down, designing. And the 3 aspects of designing are, I like alliteration, if you haven't noticed that by now, are packaging, pricing. I'm sorry, it's actually 4. Packaging, pricing, preparing, and positioning. All right? Give you some time to write that. And actually, if I was going to put them in order, the preparing would be first. Because you may want to help and serve youth, but you need a particular skill set that you haven't developed yet, right? So that preparing would be, could be getting those skills, going to some workshops for some training around some specific things. Or maybe you know everything there is to know about youth development, but you don't know what it is about to do what organizational development looks like. Hi, Tabitha. So you may not know what organizational development looks like. So that's something that you'll have to put kind of in your toolkit. So Tabitha, I was just letting everyone know that in designing and professionalizing your passion, there's a 4-step process into designing. And one of the things with, hi, Natasha. Hi, Karen. One of the things in professionalizing you did definitely made it. No, that's okay about the date. It's totally fine. That happens. That totally happens. Good morning. Good morning, Karen Hansley. You know, I'm realizing that the time period, you know, people got to get up, you got to stretch, you got to, you know, get your game face on and all of that. So the good thing about it is that it's being recorded. So you guys will be able to see the recording. So that'll be the fantastic part for the aspects of it that you missed. So I went over the purpose aspect, how to discover your purpose. We talked about, or I talked about to myself, looking at your passion. And right now we're going over profit. And then I'm going to go into the 7-step formula for monetizing your message. And then I'll open it up. I'll open a seat up for if someone wants to call in. If you think of something and you have a question, feel free to go ahead and ask the question. All right. So around profit, professionalizing your passion. Now, professionalizing your passion, I was saying before, is a 4-step process. That first step is discovering. And the next step of it is designing. And there's actually within designing, if you have a sheet of paper and a pencil, you probably want to write it down. In designing, there's 4 steps within that, right? And those steps are preparing. I'll give them to you. I'll just give it to you like this instead of all at once. So preparing means maybe you want to do something that you're particularly passionate about, but you don't necessarily have the skill set for it yet. Or maybe you don't have the infrastructure, or maybe you have to get the right people on your team. Maybe you don't have a board developed yet. So part of professionalizing is doing that prep work, is taking that passion and actually professionalizing it. One of the things I see so often is people have the passion, they have the drive, they have the spunk, they're ready to go out and do it. They want to serve the world and, you know, make everything a happy place, kumbaya. But because they don't have the skill set and they're not necessarily prepared for a sustainable organization, because a shooting star burns out at some point, right? You don't want to be like a shooting star. You want to be consistent like the sun. Comes up every day, goes down, comes up, goes down, comes up, but it's consistent, right? So preparing is the first step in designing. So step 2 in designing, and step 2 in designing is packaging. So how do I take, and the example that I used earlier was a youth development organization. So if I have this youth development organization and I'm passionate, I want to get the kids off the street, they're, getting locked up and I don't like that. What am I doing? What am I going to do about that? I'm preparing. I've already gone through the first step of preparing. I have went to youth development organizations. I have my board developed. I have, all of those things that I need to prepare. Now it's about packaging it. Now there's some things that consist in packaging. And I'm going to go into that too. Packaging has to do with like how it's presented, right? This is packaged. This is information. So with this particular setup, my desire is to help people who help people, to serve in a particular way. I got prepared. I got on this particular platform, learned about it. I got the skill set to give the information. The packaging is, how do I take content? How do I take, several years of experience, a master's degree in nonprofit development, my background? How do I take all of that information and how do I package that in a particular way, right? So that's what I mean by packaging. The next step in that is pricing. So deciding how are you going to price. Now, the thing about in nonprofits that I think some of us mix up is who we should be targeting. And the thing about us is nonprofits, I should say, is we have several angles of people who we're targeting or who we're engaging with, right? We're not just engaging with the people who we're serving. So if I have a youth development organization, I'm not just going to be targeting them. I need to target donors. I need to target foundations. I need to target organizations. And so in targeting them, I have to position myself to be in the places where they are. Where does my ideal donor reside? Where do they hang out? What are the other things that they care about? Right. So Tabitha says, yes, and sometimes we don't study the market that we're passionate about. That's a fantastic point, because we'll say a lot of times people will think that they are the only one in their neighborhood who is developing a youth organization, and ain't nobody out here doing nothing for these babies. But I guarantee you, if you put in your zip code and you typed in some keywords, you will find that there's several organizations that are doing that are doing some piece of it, right? That are doing it to some degree or some aspect of it. So that's kind of part of studying the market and assessing what the needs are beyond what your visual eyeballs can see. I live on XY Street. Kids are outside during school hours, so I think that there's a problem with truancy and kids aren't going to school. Well, let's examine and see if there's a problem with that. Let's examine the market. Let's talk to, and not just schools, let's talk to the churches. Let's talk to parents. Let's talk to neighborhood organizations. So those are your stakeholders, right? Not stockholders like in for-profit, but stakeholders, where there's several points of contact. There's several people interested and care about that one youth, right? Karen says, I went for my 501c3 first, then got a career coach. That's part of that preparing, that's kind of part of that preparing. And you could do it in a number of ways. You could do the 501c3 first and then get a coach. You could do it this one and then that one. That's totally fine. But that's also the thing that I hear when you say that, though, is that you were preparing for it, that you didn't take the situation lightly. The only thing that I would say is to try to get the coach for people who haven't done. If there's people who are listening to the recording and haven't went that route first, I would recommend that you probably get the coach first and not get the coach first, only because because you can go back and you could change your 501c3, but they'll help you to formulate what this organization is going to look like. And that's kind of what you're going to put on your 501c3. Because when you fill out that paperwork, you're deciding what your board is going to be. You're setting up bylaws. You're developing your vision, your mission. And of course, you could go back and you can change it later if you learn something different from your coach. That's totally fine, totally doable, and something that people do. So in professionalizing your passion, we talked about first you have to discover what that is, gave some tips for discovering it, designing your passion, and that is about preparing, packaging.
It's 9 o'clock.
Thank you, computer. And positioning. Now, the next step in professionalizing your passion is about delivering, right? How do I deliver the information? So if my goal is to help, if the exchange or the transformation that I'm seeking to make is youth development, how do I go about that? What is my delivery method of getting the information out there, of engaging with other people, of letting them know what I'm up to, of getting partners in this process? And the two S's that I like to say around delivering are strategy and systems, right? You need to have a strategy. You need to have systems. One of the things that Tabitha mentioned that I really like is the whole point about studying the market. And I really tell people often, when you're developing your board, go ahead and look at other organizations that are doing similar work or targeting the same group that you're targeting, right? And after you do that, then look at who their board is. Who's on their board? Who's funding them? Who's donating to them? Because this could help you get specific about what strategy you're going to use when you go about talking to some of those same people. So when you're talking about professionalizing your passion, delivery is very key and very important. And you can't really have effective delivery without strategy and systems. The thing about systems that I really appreciate is it allows you to be consistent. I mentioned before that a shooting star only burns for so long, but the sun is consistent. It rises every morning and sets every evening. And you want to be consistent. Sometimes there are people who start off really excited, really passionate, and then the work that it takes to put into it, they start to slow down and drudge a little bit, and they can't really see it all the way through because they put so much in the beginning because they didn't really necessarily have a strategy. Also, they didn't have a system. One of the systems that I use Hootsuite quite often. Hootsuite is a social media tool, and it allows me to consistently post on several locations, on several different sites. So there are sometimes where I see people on social media and they're popping and you see a whole bunch of stuff, and then 1, 2, 3 months later it's crickets. And that's not consistency. And that also doesn't build trust. Systems turns leads into donors, to supporters, to people who know, like, and trust you, and they are ready to make a transaction. That's why strategy and systems are very important. Strategy is a very good way to connect your genius to other people's needs. You need a strategy to do it. You don't want to go at something like that ad hoc. I like what Tabitha say, passion without knowledge and application is fruitless. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing. I say it over and over again because it's really something that I see so much, that nonprofits aren't failing. Social entrepreneurships aren't failing because people aren't passionate enough. They aren't failing because nobody cares. They aren't failing because, you know what I mean? They're not failing for those reasons. They're failing because we aren't connecting our passion in a way that is professionalizing it to make it sustainable and to last over a long period of time. Thanks for the props, Tabitha. If anything that I say resonates with you, please do feel free to share it with your Twitter or your Facebook by just clicking it over on this side on mine. So I don't know where it is. It should be a Facebook and Twitter, and you can share. It'll share the last 30 minutes. So if there's something that I say and you like it and you think someone else might like it, share that with them. All right. So we talked about purpose, how to find your purpose. We talked about passion, navigating through passion, and we talked about how to professionalize your passion into helping to make a profit. And so we're going to talk a little bit deeper about profit. And right now we're going to get into the 7-step formula to monetizing your message. 7-step formula to monetizing your message. Just take a drink really quick. So after we get into the 7-step process of monetizing your message, I'm going to open up the seat. So if a person wants to call in, then they are free to do so. Or if they have a question, you could put the question at any time. Just use at the end of the send a message, you see there's a slash. You could click that. You could click that in a queue, and it'll just highlight that you have a question for me. Or you could call in and get on the video and ask a question that way. So that should have given you guys enough time to get a sheet of paper and a pencil. And so let's start getting into the 7-step formula to monetizing your message. So these first 3 steps that I'm about to mention come in somewhat of a package, right? They are a lot around what I tell people to put and to consider when you're developing your mission statement. Your mission statement is your first marketing tool. And I tell people you need to make a money-making mission statement. A lot of times for social entrepreneurs or for nonprofits, we don't like to say, make money, but no, we need to make money, right? That's what, that's what's going to be the driving force behind it. It's not the goal. It's not the primary thing, but you're going to still need that to keep the car going. Like gas. Gas is such a small aspect of your car, but you can't run the car without the gas. You got this whole automobile and it's not going anywhere if you don't put the gas in it. That's kind of how what money is in terms of nonprofits. All right. So the first 3 steps to monetizing your message. And again, these first 3 are kind of grouped together around your mission statement. This is how you make a money-making mission statement. So the first key to a money-making mission statement is clarity. Let me be more specific about what I mean about that, right? So I'm hoping you're writing down clarity. Clarity means I should be able to read your mission statement and I know who you serve and how you serve them. If it's something like hope, wellness, and beauty is the transformation of the people, right? That might sound very pretty, but I have no idea what you do. And I'm confused. And I don't know. I just don't know what you do. And other people don't know what you do. And you want to communicate that. You want to be able to communicate that not only to the people who need your services, you want to be able to communicate that to people who are on your board. You want to be able to communicate that to people who you want to make transactions with. And this works for social entrepreneurship as well as nonprofit development. I'm sorry. So if you have a specific goal, then you need to be clear about what that is, right? So that people can look at it and say, okay, that's who I want to, that's definitely something that I'm about. Or they can disassociate and say, no, that's not what I'm about. Either way, you win because you're getting the right people on the bus, right? So the next step in terms of making a money-making mission statement is to make it concise. I see so many mission statements that are like a paragraph or 2. And it's like what? I feed the children and then I give them tutoring and I walk dogs and I also save dolphins. Or let's say it's not that pointed out, right? You need your lawyer to read it. Let's say that it's not that spread out. Because one of the things that purpose-driven leaders like to do is we know that one solution isn't going to fix a particular thing. So we're very much about taking a holistic approach, right? Let's take a very holistic approach. So one of the ways that we end up taking a holistic approach is, let's say if we are a youth development agency, okay, I'm a youth development agency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide tutoring. And then you might see, okay, I'm providing tutoring, but one of the reasons that this child can't stay awake is because they're hungry. So in addition to tutoring, I'm also going to have like after school lunch program. Okay, one of the other reasons that this child is failing is because their parent can't help them with their homework. So I'm going to have a parenting facility a parenting education facility. And another reason that they're having an issue is because they can't get transportation. So I am going to have a transportation service that tutors children and helps the parent, and they're going to have lunch, right? And that's how we think, because we think holistically, and we don't want to just have one off. The thing that you got to be cautious of is mission creep. This happens to the best, the smartest, the brightest nonprofit organizations. Let me tell you, mission creep it is a natural, regular beast of purpose-driven people who want to do good. It's just in us, and that's kind of how we've been built. And I wouldn't say that you should not serve those people in a multitude of ways. I would say this is the thing to keep in mind. One, I would say go deep before you go wide. If I'm offering tutor service, I'm just going to offer tutor service until I get this sustainable, until I get a well-oiled machine, until it's good. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to be about. Doreen Rainey, a coach of mine, she says, keep the main thing, she said, keep the main thing the main thing. And she also mentioned, Serena Williams, she plays tennis. Now, she also has a clothing thing that she does. She also has a water, I think, or Oprah. Oprah's the talk show host, right? But before Oprah got into other things, hi, Bantu Media. Before Oprah got into those other things, she was just a talk show host. That's the significance of going deep before you go wide. Because once you go deep and you establish an audience, then you can branch out to those other areas. While you're in that point, if you are serving a population and you say, I'm fulfilling this particular need, but I see they need this, and I see they need that, and I see they need, all of these other things. There are a plethora of other organizations for which you can partner with, for which you can provide cross referral services to, so that that person's needs are getting met in a multitude of ways that does not require your organization to mission creep. It doesn't require your organization to try to be all things to all people. Because when I see a mission statement, and in that mission statement, you are training 15-year-olds, and you're also training adults, and you're providing a transportation service, and if you're doing all of that and it's all in the mission statement, that's not concise, and I'm confused. I am confused about what it is that you do. So you have to make the first aspect of the money making mission statement is one, clarity, and the second one is concise. And when I say concise, I mean 3 to 5 sentences at the, like 5 is like pushing it. Like, you should be able to say what it is you do and how it is you serve, who you serve, and how you serve them. 3 to 5 sentences, no more, no more. All right. So the third aspect of a money-making mission statement is to make it compelling. And the thing about social entrepreneurship and nonprofit development in terms of making it compelling is because we are people who pay for the transformation. We don't pay for transaction, right? So the transformation is particularly important to us. When I went to McDonald's this morning and I got my iced coffee, there was a transaction that ended at that point. I gave them the money. They gave me my iced coffee. We're done. In nonprofit organizations, it's not that cut and dry. We're not looking for a transaction. We're looking for a transformation. And to be able to articulate that transformation, one of the things that I think the Feed the Children organization, right, Tabitha, relationships, one of the things I think that Feed the Children organization does very well is they let me know how what I'm giving is going to transform. They say they take something that is an inanimate, simple object, my purse is over there, so I don't have like the cash next to me. Let's say if this is $1, or I'll just say it's a pen. With this one pen, if you send this in, you could feed a family of 5, and she can go to school and she can get an education, or what have you, whatever it is. For $1 a day, little Ersta is going to be able to get a job and provide for her family, and they'll have a better, all of these things. So they're speaking to the transformation, not a trend. They don't want a transaction. You definitely want to speak to the transformation. So make your mission statement clear, concise, and compelling. And compelling involves speaking to the transformation. What is the outcome? A lot of times people ask me, what is the difference between for-profit and nonprofit? There's a number of differences. I'll have a whole training thing on that. But the one difference that I usually tell them is businesses or for-profits do it for the income, right? That's the primary thing. The most important thing is the bottom line, period. Everything else is secondary. And that doesn't mean that nonprofits don't have money. Like I said, you have a car, you still need that car to go. So one of the things that I say to concisely explain what the difference is for-profits do it for the income, nonprofits do it for the outcome. So if you're not explaining the outcome, then you're missing in the conversation, right? I want to know when I give this, what is the outcome, right? So that's about speaking. That's about making it compelling. All right. So those are the first 3 steps. Should nonprofits then come back in the same way and say to the donors that your investment was able to accomplish or provide this or that? Absolutely. Absolutely. Donors like hearing feedback. They like not feedback. That's not the right word. Reporting back, I should say, on what their money is going to and how it's supporting. Also, businesses even like that. They like it so that they could be able to say, one, that they're socially responsible, and they can show that they are a corporation or organization with a heart. So if you say, with this funding, we were able to do X, Y, Z. Yes, they absolutely love that. And it's even better if you can do that and not have to be prompted to do that. Yeah, well, I will say that they don't necessarily do it as much as they should, but I have a training on that called friend raising instead of fundraising. In friend raising, if I borrow, $5 from you, and I'm like, man, I really need, or I get $5 from you, I really need X, Y, Z, and you give me the $5 and this help, and I come back to you and I say, that $5 that you gave me that one time, I didn't have a way of getting it, but that fed me. And not only was I able to feed myself, but I was able to feed my daughter. And I just want to thank you so much for that. That not only makes you feel good, but it heightens the possibility of a next time I come to you and ask you or say something to you. If the only time we talk to our donors is to say, gimme, we don't even say, we don't talk to them to say thank you. We don't talk to them to say what this contributed to. That is a bad friendship. And you want to do better friend raising than that. It's just not a good relationship. It makes you, it can make a donor feel like for lack of a better word, sugar daddy. You only come to me when you want something. Right. Yes, it's just a simple way of showing gratitude and making me repeat. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And people really should do it more. So the 4th step so we're on the 7-step formula to monetizing your message. And the 4th one is alignment with core values. So this is what I'm saying when I say that. Make sure that your message, this is the 7-step formula to monetizing your message. Make sure that your message aligns with your core values. And one of the reasons I say that is for no other reason than consistency, right? If I say that my organization is about saving dolphins, and then you see me eat a tuna sandwich, then then that's suspect. Like, is that what you're about? Because in nonprofits, we care about that. Absolutely, integrity is key, and we care about those sort of things. We care about your core values aligning with the message, and I want to see that demonstrated. And if your core values do not align with the message, then it takes more work to try to demonstrate it. It takes more work because I got to do all this extra, all this extra thing to be one person here and then another person here. But just letting it align with your core values and being authentic, because authenticity has no competition, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. 5. So this is the 5th of the 7-step formula to monetize your message. If you are getting any good takeaways and you are enjoying this, please feel free to share with your Facebook or your Twitter feeds and let everyone else know that they could come over and get some good information, or that you could just share a 30-second video by clicking over here. On my screen, it's over here. Clicking over there. Yeah, so that's that. All right. 5th, identify. Thank you. Identify your USP, right? Your USP is your unique serving proposition. Oh, hi, Kristen. You came on earlier. Was there an issue? What is that red triangle on it? Okay, never mind. USP, what is your unique serving proposition? As I mentioned earlier, and Tabitha kind of led into it when she said some people don't explore their market to kind of see what exactly the needs are, right? And when you don't explore to see what the needs are, then you don't know what else is out there, and you don't know what makes you unique. How are you going to uniquely serve? There has got to be 50, like minimum 50 youth organizations. And I'm just picking that one because it's an easy one for me anyway. I've done a lot of youth work. So there has got to be a minimum of 50 organizations where that serve youth in some capacity. Even if all of those organizations have a tutoring program or a mentoring program, even if they all do, what you need to look at is how you serve them uniquely, right? And include that in your service proposition, your unique service proposition. How do you serve the people who you serve uniquely than the other organizations that are out there? And you should need to be able to demonstrate that into your message. All of this is connected to your message. So how do you serve them uniquely? Be able to articulate that. Number 6, in terms of a formula to monetizing your message. So if you're going to be able to monetize your message, you need to know who your ideal person that you are speaking to is, right? Who is that person? Now, I always tell people there is a demographic, right? And those are good to have. Gender, race, income, profession. But you also need to know the psychographic if you're making a message to that person. Psychographic meaning, what do they care about? What keeps them up at 5 o'clock in the morning? What is their why that makes them cry? What type of television shows do they watch? Things like that. One, because it'll help you to know how to position, and also helps you to know how to craft a message, right? There's certain things that I know about my grandmother that if I'm writing a message to her and even if I'm articulating the same information, I'm going to write it different to my grandmother than I would write to my husband. because there's a psychographical difference there. There's words that I would use when I'm talking to my grandmother that I wouldn't use with my husband, even if I'm talking about virtually the same thing. So know that, and that's going to help to inform the words that you use. And one of the reasons why that's important is because if you're giving a message, you want them to automatically identify and know she's talking to me, or that's my people, right? Or that's my community. There's one thing that, and this is, there's a word, I don't even think it's an actual word, but it's like a word in the Urban Dictionary that as soon as I see it, I feel like, okay, there's some kinship there. And that word is, I'm going to write it right here, and y'all let me know if y'all recognize this word. That word is yes, right? When you see yes, a little bit. So if I'm communicating to a person, it's true, Tabitha. If I'm communicating to a person, I know that if I'm talking to a particular person with that psychographic, I know that they will understand that and know exactly what they mean. Now, if I say that to my grandmother, she'd be like, what are you talking about? What's wrong with you? Or even the process of writing LOL or something. So take in mind, not just the demographic, but the psychographic, and put that in your messaging. Use some of the same words that audience use. Make it more personal. All right, we're at the 7th one. The 7th one is very compact. And then I'm going to open up the seats for questions, and then we're going to say bye. All right. So the 7th key the 7 steps in the 7-step formula to monetizing your message. Again, this is compact. Consistency, right? Okay. So what do I mean by consistency in your messaging? On surface, it just means exactly what consistency is, right? If you follow Be More LLC, if you went to BeMoreLLC.com, if you went there, you will see that same logo that you see there is right there. You'll see it on Twitter. You'll also see it on Facebook. That's one thing. That's just a logo, right? You'll know instantly that you're okay. If you were looking for Be More LLC, you were in the right place. Another thing is the words that I use. The words that I use here to grab people here are the same words that I put on Twitter, are the same words that I put on Facebook. So right there, your messaging is consistent across platforms. So not just consistency in terms of repetition, but consistent in the places that it shows up. And one of the things about consistency is the strategy in which you're consistent, the tactics, the process, and the systems. Those are very key to consistency. Strategy, tactics, process, and systems. Tabitha says, with your consistency, you have created a brand for yourself and your business. Absolutely right. That's really largely what 7 steps to monetizing your message is. It's about developing a brand. And the reason why I don't always like to say off jump that it's brand, but I'm glad that you got that, is because a lot of times we think that a brand is a logo and a color and some colors that you pick. And it's so much more than that. It's about the character. It's about who you are. That's why passion is important. That's why purpose is important. That's why core values are important. And that's why you want to put that in alignment. But people don't think of compassion and purpose and core values when they think of brand. They think of, what's my color scheme? What's my logo? What are all of these things? But that is not exactly what a brand is. A brand is a character. Think of it as like it's a person. What is the personality of that organization? Mac, right? I'm doing this on a MacBook. Mac has a certain character. It's a certain personality. It is a certain user also that uses Mac, right? So they have a young, modern, hip, edgy, I'm cool, but I'm not really trying to be cool type of feel to it, right? Starbucks has it's a certain character that comes top of mind. And before I wrap up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a seat. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask, seat is locked. Unlock the seat. There we go. So if anyone wants to jump in and ask a question, they can. Right now, I'll go ahead and I'll stop the recording, but I'm going to let you guys know if you want more information, you can visit BeMoreLLC.com. There is also a free audio training there that you can get when you go to that site, BeMoreLLC.com. It's a bit longer audio training, and you can watch that. You can also come back to this and listen and watch this recording, and feel free to share. I want as many people who are developing nonprofits to not only know the best and most effective strategies, but I want them to avoid some of those costly mistakes that some of the smartest purpose-driven leaders make. Thank you so much, Tabitha. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and just say thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you for being engaged. Thank you for the work that you do out there serving. And I appreciate people who want to connect their purpose and their passion to profit. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for listening to Be More LLC.